The Chicago Bears are guaranteed to play one of three teams in the NFC playoffs, but their best path would start with a rematch against the Green Bay Packers.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On the show today, we're going to go through the three teams that the Bears could face in the first round of the playoffs, depending on how things go in Week 18, to kind of get a sense of, well, who would you prefer to play? We know Ben Johnson and the Bears are going to try to win against the Lions and kind of let what happens next happen from there, which is already locked into one spot. Like, it's not going to affect what the Bears do on Sunday, but we can kind of look at this from like what's most favorable? Who would you rather play in the first round if you could pick who you wanted to? We'll talk about the three teams are the Green Bay Packers, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Los Angeles Rams. So the only options for the Bears to play in round one. And I think the best path for them starts with playing the Green Bay Packers in round one. And that's not just because it would mean the Bears are the #2 seed. Like, that's kind of the bigger picture question here. If the Bears win on Sunday, they beat the Lions, the Bears are locked in the #2 seed. They will play the #7 seed, which is the Green Bay Packers. Even if the Bears lose to the Lions on Sunday, if the Philadelphia Eagles also lose their game, then the Bears would still be the #2 seed in the NFC. Like, the Bears don't even have to win. They just have to make sure that the Philadelphia Eagles lose, but they're playing a bad Commanders team. So chances are the Bears will likely have to win to secure that #2 seed. If the Bears lose and the Eagles win, then the Bears would drop down to the 3 seed, and they've got a couple of options there. Could be the San Francisco 49ers or the Los Angeles Rams. But playing the Green Bay Packers, I think, is both the best because you're the 2 seed, so you're guaranteed, 2 home games, and that I think Green Bay is the matchup I would most want to face in the first round. But we'll go through the pros and cons for each of the teams here. Like, for Green Bay, you just beat them 2 weeks ago, right? There's a recent familiarity of like, oh yeah, we can beat these guys. We just beat these guys. Let's go out there and do it again. And a lot of that, I think, I don't want to say that's not a lot of why they won, but like a big part of why Green Bay is the team you would want to face in the first round of the playoffs is because they are very injured. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. I think we saw San Francisco also have some injuries, but they've been healthier in recent weeks, and that's part of why they've been playing better football. And the Rams are dealing with some injuries. We'll talk about them more specific, but still, I think the Packers are the most injured of any of these three teams. And like, obviously, as the 7 seed, they're just overall the worst of the playoff teams. I don't think it would be any kind of easy matchup, but like, I just think when you look at where the Bears have struggled against Green Bay in the first 2 matchups, there were a lot of self-inflicted wounds and like Bears' own sloppiness that contributed there. A bunch of penalties. And that's to say that it wasn't as though Green Bay was just way better than them in every facet of the game, right? I mean, think back to the second game when the Bears had 4th down and 1, and the snap goes over Kyle Monangai's head, and they should have had points on that drive, and they don't, right? And there were, 7 penalties for 105 yards in that game? Like, there's a bunch of things where the Bears got in their own way that made the game feel like Green Bay was playing better than they were in those games. And presumably, if you're playing the Packers in the first round, either Jordan Love will be back and rusty, or maybe he won't be back. I mean, he's recovering from the concussion. We don't know what the timeline's going to be on that. Those are all kind of different and for every player. But even if he comes back this Sunday against the Vikings for them, he'll have 1 game back under his belt after having missed a couple. Like, it's not like Jordan Love is on fire, full Toyota-thon mode, racking up wins and confidence and high-level performances that you're like, you got a red-hot Jordan Love coming into town in the playoffs. Like, no, he could have a game against the Vikings, I guess, but like, I don't think Brian Flores is going to take it easy on him. I think they're going to come after him if Jordan Love even plays in that game. And if Love doesn't play in that game and then makes his first game back against the Bears, like, he's going to be a little bit rusty there. And if it's not Jordan Love, then it's Malik Willis. And that's the quarterback you'd much rather face than either Brock Purdy or Matthew Stafford among your other two team options. Like, this would just be a matchup where nothing's going to surprise you. And that's what I like most about it, right? It's that you've seen the Packers twice. They're not going to come out with something that you haven't seen or haven't been able to prepare for. I mean, obviously, like individual plays here and there, right? But your players will have already scouted them and practiced them and repped them twice this season. A third time, you will know their receivers' tendencies inside and out. You'll know their pass rushers inside and out. You'll know their defensive coverages inside and out. You'll just be so familiar with the opponent. And sure, the Packers would be that much more familiar with you as well. It goes both ways. But I just think with Ben Johnson's ability to scheme and coach, and Dennis Allen's too, like, these are experienced quality coaches that can take advantage of really knowing an opponent well. They're not going to fool you and surprise you and make you have to do some crazy adjustments. And you go like a little bit deeper into the matchup. I think, the Packers offensive line has been spotty, and I think that's a more favorable matchup for this Bears pass rush to try and get going. And maybe even bigger picture here, the Packers are a young team that doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. I mean, yeah, they won a playoff game last year, but like, this has not been a team that has a bunch of years of experience on the belt, and things just are a little bit different in the playoffs, and the Bears don't have the playoff experience either. So I'd rather face another young, inexperienced team that's kind of figuring out postseason football for themselves, as opposed to one of the other two teams that's a bit more experienced in their recent years. On the flip side, what scares me about the Packers, like if you want to take the other side of this and say, well, maybe you wouldn't want to face Green Bay a third time, Green Bay will feel very confident in their ability to get the upset here, right? Like I'm curious, like, as you're sitting here right now, if the Bears and Packers played again in 2 weeks, how confident are you in the Bears truly winning, given how it was an overtime game-winning touchdown to beat them the second time, and you lost to them the first time? It's been really tight one-score games, and we saw Jordan Love pretty well torch this Bears defense in both games, at least before he got hurt in the first game. But Malik Willis was moving the ball well against this Bears defense too, and it did feel like, late against the Packers this past time, there was some Green Bay mistakes along the way in terms of Jordan Love, missed a throw and had an interception early in the game that helped the defense, and Malik Willis missed some throws here and there and some penalties as well that kept the Bears in it. Obviously, the onside kick was kind of lucky. Like, it was a little bit fluky to beat the Packers the second time. Both Bears-Packers games were games where the Packers had a healthy lead in the middle portion of the game, and the Bears had to do late comebacks in both games to barely win one of them. So I feel some internal nerves and some like historic PTSD, lack of confidence in being able to beat the Packers again. But I also think they are the worst of these playoff teams that the Bears could face. Not of all the playoff teams, because I think that's the Panthers, but like of the options for Chicago, I think the Packers are the least talented, and in some ways just because of least healthy football team you could face. So sign me up as that as my first choice, in addition to the fact that I will get 2 home playoff games because I wouldn't face the number 1 seed until the NFC Championship game, potentially, if they even get there. So if whoever the number 1 seed is gets eliminated early, you could play every home playoff game all the way until the Super Bowl if you were to keep getting that far. So 2 seed is important for a lot of reasons, in addition to lining you up to play what's probably the worst of these 3 teams in the Green Bay Packers. Now, that being said, given the scariness of Green Bay and just sort of how funky stuff always happens when the Bears and Packers play, even if one team is quote unquote better, there's just a lot of unpredictability and weird stuff that happens. Maybe there's a little bit more of like the devil in like San Francisco, having just played them and saying, if you rematch San Francisco right now, I think the Bears could pull off a win in that game, and you could feel pretty good about making some adjustments and being able to hit them a lot harder the second time than you did the first time. So we'll look at the merits of like, what if it's a rematch against San Francisco? I think that would be preferable to the Rams, but maybe not quite as preferable as the Green Bay Packers. We'll look at some of the pros and cons of that matchup next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Gametime. The NFL playoffs are almost here, and there's nothing like being at the game in the playoff atmosphere, the crowd noise, the energy, cheering alongside other fans. And it's great to watch at home, but being in the stadium, it just hits different. The frustrating part has always been trying to get tickets, though, waiting in the queues and dealing with logins and watching prices jack right up once you get to checkout with all those fees added on. But that's where Gametime comes in, because the Gametime app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. They've got seat views in the venue, so you can pick your seat in Soldier Field or wherever and see what the view is going to look like from your seat. And then when you go to the checkout process, the fees are included up front. So the price you see is the price you pay. And you can do it not only with NFL playoff tickets, but any other sports, plus, comedy shows, concerts, theater performances, you name it. They've got it all at Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem that code, LOCKEDON NFL, Locked On NFL, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today and get back to being there live. The Bears just lost to San Francisco, so I find myself not being eager to say, let's go do it again and try and win this time. But second time, if they play in the playoffs, and I suppose if you want, we can walk briefly through the scenarios here. So the Bears would have to lose to the Lions, and the Eagles would have to beat the Commanders. Then that would make the Eagles a 2 seed and the Bears the 3 seed. So then as the 3 seed, the Bears would face the 6 seed. And in order for the Bears to face the 49ers as the 6 seed, the Niners would have to lose, and the Seahawks and Rams then would have to win their respective games. The Seahawks are playing the Niners, and the Rams have to beat the Cardinals. That would leave. And so if 49ers lose, Rams win, Bears lose, then it's Bears 49ers. And some of the inverse there would be how you get to the Rams game. But so it's not super important to get caught in the weeds of how exactly you get there, but the 49ers are one of the options here. And there's something to be said about, hey, this is fresh. You just watched them. You just scouted them. You just saw what went wrong and what went right. And you now know, okay, let's do more of that went well and less of what went poorly, and say, okay, can we stop Brock Purdy a few more times by adjusting X, Y, and Z thing here and there? Because one of the big pros here is you can score on this 49ers defense. The Bears did not have that much luck scoring on the Green Bay Packers. They haven't had that much luck scoring on anybody except for the Cincinnati Bengals this season. It was the second most points the Bears had put up in a game this year. It was against potentially the team you could be playing in the playoffs. So there's a certain peace of mind of going into a game saying, not going to have any trouble scoring the ball. So if you can just adjust defensively a little bit, you can talk yourself into a victory. And you can go, well, Bears could probably, when into the playoffs, could probably run the ball a little bit more and control the clock a little bit better. And you also feel like, hey, in another matchup against the 49ers, you might be able to get more turnovers than the Bears got in this game. We talked on yesterday's Locked On Bears podcast about how one of the issues here is that the Bears only had 1 turnover on San Francisco. And that's been kind of a trend this season, that games where the Bears only have 1 or fewer turnovers, they're either lose it or it's really tight and really struggle. The only one they've won, like the Giants and the Packers games, they won 1-score games that were really tight. But then, you get multiple turnovers, 2 to 3. They've had a lot easier times in some of those games. So when Brock Purdy has the interception by C.J. Gardner-Johnson that's negated by a penalty, all of a sudden you take that touchdown off the board, and the Bears maybe win that game, right? So if you have another opportunity to get multiple turnovers off of Purdy, because he has put the ball in harm's way more than the stats would suggest this season. He's gotten lucky with some dropped interceptions or some bad throws that could have been turnover worthy but didn't end up getting turned over. That Bears luck would swing the opposite direction, that, hey, maybe you were a little less lucky against Purdy the first time, that in theory there would be a regression to the mean of being a little bit more lucky the second time, that maybe you get an extra turnover or 2, and that's the difference between winning this game. Plus, we know the 49ers have a bad pass rush. So Caleb Williams, if there's a rematch there, he's going to have time in the pocket, especially if they can clean up some of the blitz pickup issues that we saw against the 49ers this time, when a couple times free rushers came through, but generally their 4-man rush isn't doing a whole lot. Generally, the 49ers wide receivers aren't doing a whole lot. Ricky Pearsall got Nashawn Wright a couple times, but he's constantly in and out of the lineup. They don't have that dominant weapon on the outside that you worry about matching up with an injured Jalen Johnson or, Nashawn Wright's up and down boom or bust aspect that, maybe more like a Christian Watson scares you a little bit, or Puka Nacua of the Rams. You don't have to worry about that with the San Francisco 49ers. And then I also think when we look back to Brock Purdy's career, he has yet to be great in the playoffs. He wasn't in the postseason last year because he was injured, if I got my years right. But the previous 2 years he played in the postseason. The 49ers missed the playoffs last year, excuse me. But then the previous 2 years, like he hasn't been like bad in the playoffs. But like those 49ers teams that were going on conference championship game runs in 2022 and 2023, I guess they went to the Super Bowl for 2023, like they were a lot more like running game defense weapon carrying the quarterback, and quarterback is the game manager, as opposed to like Purdy putting the team on his back and slicing and dicing defenses. Now, he's obviously playing a lot better right now, and he's pretty hot right now, but still got to see him actually do it in the playoffs before we can truly trust that he can be like the playoff difference maker. And then the last thing, like if you rematch the 49ers in the first round of the playoffs, it's in Chicago this time, not in San Francisco. A home game versus a road game is also an advantage there. Now, on the opposite, they just torched your defense. You don't necessarily want to go back and say, like, can the Bears fix the defense the second time around against the 49ers? Are there real answers for them to say, oh, if they just did these three things differently, they could slow down the 49ers offense? Or is it, no, you just need turnovers because you don't really have any real way to stop them? Like we talked about it yesterday and on Monday's podcast. Like Kyle Shanahan's really good at attacking your weaknesses and isolating matchups and getting his guys open. And sometimes you have to chalk it up to be a really good opposing coach. Like Purdy is dealing it right now. And Tonjes and McCaffrey were taking advantage of the Bears linebackers and attacking the middle of the field over and over again. Like that's going to be tough. And there's not a magic like, oh, just call this coverage or call this blitz and you're going to negate the 49ers offense. Like I would be very worried about it being another, 35-35 type of game in the fourth quarter. And plus, like this is an experienced San Francisco 49ers playoff team. Like, yes, they weren't in the playoffs last year and they've had roster turnover. Like, it's not the exact same guys, but like we just mentioned, 2023 went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs. The year before that, they played 3 more playoff games and lost to the conference championship game to the Eagles. And before that, they were in the conference championship game. Like, it was 3 straight years of at least 3 playoff games. Not everybody on this roster was there for all of that. I mean, Purdy has 6 games under his belt in the playoffs, and they've had some new faces, some younger guys, but like coaching staff and veterans on that team know what it takes to be successful in the playoffs in a way that the Bears still have to prove. Doesn't mean they can't, but experience in the playoffs seems to matter a lot in the playoffs. And so that concerns me about being an advantage for San Francisco in this matchup that, again, like Green Bay wouldn't necessarily have. Also, I think if the Bears and 49ers play in the first round, decent chance that George Kittle would return for that game. Bears got 49ers without Kittle the first time. Tongas still had a good game, but like even George Kittle at this stage is still a really good player. And given how that was a go-to matchup for them, I think Kittle would scare me if he's back. He's been dealing with an injury, so I would imagine. I mean, I guess last game of the season is win for the number 1 overall seed, so they'll play him if he's healthy. But either way, like in theory, he should be good to go 2 weeks from now if the Bears were to play them in the first round. And so that makes the 49ers that much more tough if George Kittle is indeed back. And yet I still find myself feeling like the team I would least want to face is the Los Angeles Rams, despite the Rams having lost 2 in a row, including to the Falcons on Monday Night Football. And the 49ers are the hotter team right now, but I trust the Rams a little bit more, and they're the team that really scares me the most. But none of these 3 are going to be easy, but all 3 of them are potentially winnable home playoff games for the Chicago Bears. So we'll look at like how Chicago might match up with the Rams. The one team on this list they haven't played yet this season, next on Locked On Bears. The Rams are an interesting one here because we don't have a previous matchup to point to and compare to and say, oh, well, Bears matched up well or poorly in these 2 areas. It's a little bit more hypothetical. But I do think the most enticing part about playing the Rams right now, or not right now, but next week, is that they have been more vulnerable lately, right? I mentioned they lost to the Falcons, not a good Falcons team on Monday Night Football. I guess technically the Falcons are still mathematically in the mix to potentially sneak into the playoffs at 8 and 9, but the Rams had no business losing to the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. The game before that was the Seahawks, which might be the number 1 seed. So like I'm willing to say, hey, they lost a good game there, but they lost to the Panthers a couple weeks before that, and they played the Lions really, really close. Like the Rams have looked beatable, and they have shown you some vulnerability later in the regular season that can give you some hope and a lot to like about maybe potentially playing them, especially in two of those losses, the Falcons and the Panthers. You get random bursts of turnovers from Matthew Stafford, who's generally taken care of the ball fairly well this season, but had 2 picks and a fumble against the Panthers in Week 13. That was like the weekend after Thanksgiving. And then Monday night against the Falcons, he threw 3 interceptions, like just put the ball in harm's way. Not always just like the most reckless passes in the world, but like still, the turnover thing is a huge part of where this Bears defense finds success. And if you could catch Stafford in one of these turnover games where he just randomly is turning it over after, he went a couple weeks in a row without turnovers this season. Like he's had some stretches of really taking good care of the ball. That's absolutely the difference in beating or losing to the San Francisco 49ers here. You also have, the Los Angeles Rams here. You also have the Rams dealing with plenty of injuries of their own to where we don't know exactly 2 weeks from now who would be back, but even if they are back, they will not be 100%. Devonta Adams has missed the last couple of games. If he does play, it's possible he could still not be ready by then, he's not going to be 100% out there. And the Los Angeles Rams offensive line has been banged up. Their backup left tackle was a big part of the problem against the Atlanta Falcons, DJ Humphries. And they could get Alaric Jackson back at some point. Their right guard, Kevin Dotson, has been out as well. So they've had a couple backup starters on the offensive line. And Coleman Shelton's back starting for them at center all of a sudden. And so it's not 100% healthy group. Even if all 5 of the quote-unquote starters are back on the field, you're not having 5 guys at 100%. You're going to still have some rust and maybe some weak links and some less than full strength, full power, full bore there that, can be a more favorable matchup for this Bears pass rush that hasn't been good enough this season. As compared to like the 49ers, where if Trent Williams is healthy for the playoffs, that's their starting 5 and they can hold up pretty well, as we saw when the Bears played them the first time. So there's some advantage there. And then I do think when we talk about playoff experience, the Rams obviously have a bunch of it, and maybe the most of this team in terms of of these 3 teams in terms of like Super Bowl coach, Super Bowl quarterback, group that you really trust in the postseason. But I will say like their defense doesn't have as much of the experience. It's still a younger Rams defense. They're a really good young defense, but a younger defense that, was exposed a little bit in the playoffs last year against the Philadelphia Eagles. Like maybe there's a little bit of something there, but I think that experience in the playoffs is what scares me the most about them. Like they're the team that we've seen be consistent and do it at the highest level in these high pressure games when they matter the most. And it's specifically like the quarterback head coach combo there, but also a receiver like Devonta Adams. We've seen Puka Nacua be clutch in the playoffs. Kyron Williams has had some good games. Like they've got playmakers who have gotten the job done in the postseason. And I just think that experience is going to matter a lot for a team like the Bears that just lacks it so much. I also think it's worth like keeping in mind, like I don't mean to state the obvious, but like the Los Angeles Rams do have the number 1 offense in the NFL. Like the Packers and especially the 49ers also have good offenses, but the Rams offense has been the literal best. It is the best offense that this Bears defense could possibly face in the playoffs. And that scares me quite a bit. That the 49ers, I think, are ranked, 8th in points this season and 7th in yards. Top 10 offense for sure. Good offense. Rams are 1st and 2nd in points and yards. And so if the 8th/9th ranked offense puts 42 on you, how many points is the 1st/2nd ranked offense going to put up on you in a playoff game? Like I worry about this Bears defense even more against the Rams than I do against the 49ers. Even though we haven't seen it against the Rams, that's a team that can put up a bunch of points and can really fire on all cylinders. I mean, they almost came back and beat the 49ers late with some really spectacular throws from Stafford that just didn't end up counting and staying in balance stuff. But it just feels like the Rams might be the most well-rounded of these 3 teams. They run the ball well, they throw the ball well, they've got a good pass rush, they generate turnovers, top 10 defense, top 1 offense. It's not to say they don't have weaknesses, but like we know the 49ers defense is bad, and there's a real problem there. Their pass rush is bad. We know that the Packers pass rush without Micah Parsons is not very good, and that defense has some vulnerabilities. We know that they can't always run the ball as well as they want to, and if Jordan Love is out, there's some real weaknesses there. We kind of know what they are and aren't, but I think the Rams have a little bit less of that, of those other than like when their offensive line is injured, the Rams have a big weakness on the offensive line, but they're as well-rounded as you can look for in a playoff team there with the coach and the quarterback I think I trust it's the QB and head coach combo in the NFC I trust the most to be successful and go to the Super Bowl. Like they are, despite being a road team, they would be the favorites against the Bears, and they may still be the favorites to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC. I mean, the number one seed team probably just will be by default, but like I would have in my book, if I had to put my money on it right now, the Rams are the team I would take to go to the Super Bowl. So I don't want to play them in the first round. I don't want to play them at all, but I definitely don't want to play them in the first round. They've got a good young pass rush. They generate turnovers. Like I'm worried about how well the Bears offense would be able to get going. And then on the other side, like how well can the Bears cover Puka Nacua? Like with or without Devonta Adams out there, the Bears have not been good at covering great receivers this season. Covering receivers, period. I mean, for a lot of the season, but especially like someone as dynamic and special as Puka Nacua, I just worry about their ability to keep up with that because the Rams can beat you in a lot of different ways, and he's going to be the one that's doing a lot of it up and down the field. So hard pass on the Rams, if at all possible, but I understand, it's you don't have control over that unless you control your destiny by winning. But if you lose to the Lions, you're at the will of how all these other games go. But I think Rams I would least like to face, 49ers, okay, and then Packers would be the preference there, even beyond just it being the 2 seed versus you'd be the 3 seed when you face the 49ers or the Rams. But I think any of those 3 teams are beatable, right? Like as much as the Rams are the scariest of the teams, we just saw the Falcons beat them. We saw the Seahawks beat them. We saw the Panthers beat them. Like they do lose and do make mistakes and aren't infallible. And we saw how close the Bears came to beating the 49ers last week. We saw the Bears literally beat the Packers almost twice, but once for sure. Like any of these games is winnable. It just comes down to, I think it's going to come down to like how many turnovers the defense can force and how many stops can you get out of your defense? Can you get 3 or 4 stops plus a turnover or 2? You win the game. If it's 1 stop, 1 turnover or 2 stops, 1 turnover, I don't know if the Bears can keep up against some of these better teams in the postseason. And then like how well the Bears can run the ball, control the clock, how quickly Caleb Williams can get rolling and get this offense firing. But the Bears are a hot team right now too, at least a hot offense, despite the loss to the San Francisco 49ers. So I think other teams are looking at this and saying, I don't know that I want to play the Bears in the first round. I think if I'm the Rams and the 49ers and even the Green Bay Packers, I'm looking around saying, I would much rather play the Eagles right now than the Chicago Bears, given how fallible the Eagles have been this season. I know they've won 3 games in a row, but like not necessarily the most impressive fashion or teams, and we've seen them lose some games that they should belong to. Like I don't have a lot of faith in the Eagles, and if I'm any of those other teams, I would rather play the Eagles than the Bears, and obviously I would rather play the Panthers or the NFC South winner than the Chicago Bears. So like doing some transitive property math here, I think like the Bears are probably the 3rd or 4th team in the NFC playoffs in terms of like if you're ranking them best to worst in some order. I think Seahawks and Rams are for sure before the Bears, and then it's a question of like 49ers or Bears, and because the Niners just beat the Bears, you kind of got to put the Niners ahead of the Bears, and the Bears are probably the 4th best team. Then I go Eagles 5th, Packers 6th, and then NFC South winner is 7th. That's kind of how I would rank them in some order. So I think it's not a bad place to be. Doesn't put you as like, ooh, this team's going to the Super Bowl, but like, hey, I think the Bears can win a playoff game against any of these teams, and then from there, it's all house money and gravy from there. So it's going to be fun to see how this team does. But in the meantime, we've got an NFC North matchup against the Lions with the 2 seed on the line and revenge on the menu for Ben Johnson. We'll break that down on tomorrow's Crossover Thursday podcast with Matt Deary from Locked On Lions to kick off the new year. So for the start of 2026, you got to make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Bears podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you are an everydayer that tunes in 5 days a week to Locked On Bears, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. You are who we do this podcast for first and foremost. And if you want to take your daily listening to the next level, you could become a member of the Locked On Bears Everydayer Club to get access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears that's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcasting app. Plus, the Everydayers Club comes with an access to the members-only Everydayers Club Discord server, which includes a Locked On Bears group chat just for listeners of this show. If you want to join, go to lockedonbears.supercast.com FanDuel.com to sign up for that ad-free listening and that Everydayer Club. Otherwise, you can keep listening the same way you always have. We're still going to be free and available on all platforms, and making sure that each and every day that you tune in, you're going to get another opportunity to bear down.